Good morning. What a comfortable setting. I have to thank Felicia. I feel like she stole a little bit of my thunder this morning. But thank you so much for those opening remarks. I think it really does a fabulous job of kicking off why we're all here today. My name is Melissa O'Neill. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Central Iowa Shelter and Services. What a lot of people don't know is about 3 blocks from here is a 4-acre urban farm that also has a 3,600 square foot greenhouse where we produce 5,500 heads of lettuce a month and 6,000 pounds of tilapia every year. We also have a food truck, thanks to the USDA, that helps go and distribute some of that food out into our community, as well as the farm produces enough food to fill the bellies within our emergency shelter, 10 meal sites, and that food truck. Also selling to extra restaurants and to food hubs across our community. The beautiful part, and this is why I just love what Felicia says, is the food creates community and purpose. It is by far our most popular job training program where we have a waiting list for individuals who are unhoused in our community to have gainful employment. And they work that farm and provide the food to so many people across our community. So if you're ever driving down Martin Luther King Boulevard here in downtown Des Moines, I welcome you to turn to your north and see a beautiful greenhouse that was all provided by private donors here in our community. It's the Cadillac of greenhouses. So we love it, but more importantly, it's that purpose and community and passion that our clients then have an opportunity to give back. So I very much appreciate the World Food Prize for asking me to be here today. And I'm just going to ask if everyone could introduce themselves a little bit. I'll go ahead and start with you, Ray, on my left. And if you could introduce yourself, and then what motivates you to increase nutritious and sustainable food in our community?
So Ray Gaesser, my wife and I moved here 47 years ago almost. So we've lived here. I'm not a native, but we've lived here longer than some of you at least. But, you know, found opportunity here, and that's what we were looking for. You know, and the goal on our farm has always been to conserve, preserve, and enhance our resources. You know, and that means to take care of the land, take care of the soil, clean the water, do the best job that we can at growing food, you know, for our family, but also our neighborhood and in Iowa and the globe. Got to see agriculture because of some of my volunteer efforts around the globe, and saw all kinds of agriculture, from the smallest agriculture in countries to the largest I've ever seen, millions of acres, you know. So has some really good experience about agriculture, but my goal and philosophy and our goal is really to care for the land and help out with our community. On our farm, we are really concerned about conservation. We've been no-till for 30 plus years. We've grown cover crops for 14 years now. We sell cover crop seeds to our neighbors. And we sell rye to Revelton Distillery. That's our value added. Hey, Rob, good to see you there. But we also work with our neighbors, you know, and who have livestock. We don't have any, but they have cows. And we had 350 cows grazing our cover crops this last winter from 5 different families, you know. So working with the community and helping the community, you know, and for 3 years, we had an effort that several of us around Iowa worked together, and it's Iowa Smart Agriculture Circles of Life. And we'll have some brochures out in the atrium, and you'll be able to take one with you and understand what the efforts are. It's really about being more circular. It's really about conserving and enhancing our resources and thinking more circularly about what we do.
Thanks, Ray. Go ahead.
Well, Ray, you definitely have lived here longer than I have. I'm an in-plant as well from Alabama. Grew up in Alabama, southern Alabama, and moved to Iowa in 2000 because I work for USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. I've had a career with them since 2000, started as an intern in 1998. And how did I get into farming? Because I've been teaching farmers. I've worked with farmers of all sizes, small, big farmers, and I've been teaching them about conservation my whole career. And then probably 10 years ago, started getting into soil health, wanting to teach farmers how to keep their soils healthy and how to be able to produce more, but not use as many natural resources. And so In 2019, in a staff meeting, I was talking to my staff and I said, we're not getting very far with this soil health thing. And I really think the problem is none of us are practitioners. None of us farm. And so farmers didn't take us serious. And I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and rent a farm and we're going to start a research project. I had one little problem. I didn't know all the details of how I was going to do that. And I didn't know, how much it was going to cost. And I went home excited. And I told my wife my exciting idea. She said, oh, that sounds great. But how are you going to pay for it? In other words, what she was telling me was it's not coming out of our household budget, buddy. I thought about that for a while, and I said, you know what, I got an idea. Both of us grew up in the South, and we can't get the produce that we grew up eating on a commercial level here in this area. What if I grew that, sold that to pay for the research? So that's what we did. She said, oh, that's a great idea. Go do it. So I did it. And so one of the main things that we grew was that we grew these things called purple hull peas, staple in the South. And I put the word out that I had purple hull peas the middle of August, and my phone never stopped ringing for 30 days. This is no exaggeration. 30 days, 7 days a week, my phone started ringing. I looked at my wife and I said, the soil health thing sounds good, but this is better. I think we have a business. And so we started Southern Goods, and we like to say that we grow food. Well, first of all, we like to say we bring the South to the Midwest. And we grow food that heals, connects, and grow. What do we mean by that? We believe that, remember I started with soil health, and I believe if you get the soil healthy, you can grow healthy, nutritious food because that's what feeds your plants, okay? So we believe that we can grow food that's so nutritious that it'll bring healing to your body. And I think there's research out there that'll back that up. The connect thing is I'm from the South. We connect around food. It's usually deep fat fried, but it's around food, So we connect around food, and so that's the connect part. And then the grow is we have a mission to grow agriculture in the black and brown community. We want to reintroduce agriculture to the black and brown community by working with black and brown youth, teaching them about growing food and agriculture and how to feed themselves and things of that nature. So we're doing that too. This summer we had a great time. We had 2 city kids that was out there, and at first I thought, why in the world am I doing this to myself? But it was great. I mean, I took them out to dinner because they finished their program last Friday, and it was just like, man, this is what it's all about. And so that's a little introduction about our farm, how we got started. We mainly grow, things like collard greens, sweet potatoes, okra, but we grow sweet corn, and there's purple hull peas I told you about, but we grow sweet corn and cucumbers too. So, we got to keep you Midwesterners happy.
Yeah. Well, Shaffer, I really appreciate that. There's something that you said in your opening remarks here that reminds me just the beautiful correlation between food and behavior. Yeah. Just wondering, I know I'm already looking at the clock, but can you expand on that just a little bit more for the audience?
About food and behavior?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's tied to who we are, right? I mean, our food and what we eat is really tied to who we are as people. And it's crazy because I just was reading something the other day, and this article was talking about heritage food. Mm-hmm. And I like to say, our Southern heritage food is what we grow, what we specialize in. I mean, we grow the other stuff too. But it's really tied to, and people, that's important to people. I see a friend of mine, Becca, over here. She's my contact for the Northeast Iowa Food Bank. And when we started bringing that food into the food bank with our partnership with them, and then she started sending me emails about the response, it was like, yeah, because the people could relate. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They could relate to what they were getting, right? It was like all of a sudden she made it important to bring them in what they wanted. Yeah. And they responded to that. And so I think it's all about, food is a big part of who we are, at least if you're from the South.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yep. Shannon, would you kind of introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Shannon Draayer. I serve as Executive Director for WesleyLife Community Nutrition, where we operate the Meals on Wheels program here in Central Iowa. I'm originally from Des Moines, but I'm a generation removed from the family farm. I grew up in the city So I think if you told me 3 years ago, 5 years ago that I would be on a panel with other farmers, I would not believe you. But it's so nice to be here with you, Ray and Shaffer and Melissa, to share a little bit about our story. We started an indoor controlled environment agriculture farm just in the last year as part of our Meals on Wheels campus. In that location, we're growing up to 20,000 pounds a year of greens that come right into the meals that we're serving. We serve almost 2,000 meals per day to primarily older adults and veterans in our community in need. Our first harvest in this farm was January 16th, and to date, we've already put those greens into 20,000 meals that have been delivered to people in Des Moines in the surrounding metro area. What really motivates me to keep doing the work that we're doing is, well, looking at this audience, it's the people that are doing this in all sorts of different ways. Each of our stories is unique, and each of your stories are unique. We have to have that diversity in how we're tackling hunger. So it's just really cool to see the different organizations and individuals represented here. But the other thing that motivates me is the need. And that's probably why you're all sitting here as well. We know that there is an increase in food insecurity in our communities. And I'm motivated to keep doing what we're doing and keep being bold with these innovative solutions so that we can support those who are food insecure in new ways in our communities.
Yeah. Thanks, Shannon. And what people don't often understand is even with homelessness, it is food insecurity that is our key performance indicator that helps predict what we're going to see in our shelters. Because if people are having to pick between putting food on the table and paying rent, we have to look closely at that, and we have to make sure we have that food secure community. So I'm going to keep moving on here. And Ray, I'll toss it back to you here. But this is for our panel. Sustainable practices in growing nutritious foods comes with challenges. Sure. How do you balance the economic pressure that comes with sustainable farming?
Yeah. So on our farm, we're fairly large scale, and so we started practice, at a small scale to get good at it and make sure it's going to work for us, and then we grow it. We started growing cover crops in 2010 with a couple hundred acres, and now we're growing 4,000 acres of cover crops, mainly just as a cover and then planting soybeans and corn afterward. But it's a learning process, and don't just jump into it. Everything, maybe it works for you, but it doesn't work for us. And, in agriculture, I call it a pert near business, plus or minus 20% of budget is pretty good for us on our farm, so that's how we plan. But just think about innovatively, and we have more and better technology and more and better information all the time, and don't just give up on it. And farmers learn from other farmers, by the way. And that's what we learn no matter whether it's in Iowa, United States, or around the world. Farmers learn from other farmers. So, that's an opportunity for us to learn from each other. And when we work together, we all benefit.
Thanks, Ray.
Before I answer that question, I just piggyback with the thing about farmers learning from other farmers. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to get into trying this, right? We needed credibility. And farmers do respond better to their neighbors. But the other thing that's also the reason why I got involved with like Practical Farmers of Iowa, because that's what that organization is all about, is farmers learning from other farmers and trying different things on their farms. And so I got involved with them as well because of what Ray just said. Farmers listen. And what I like about them is their tent is so big that it could be row crop farmers, horticulture farmers, greenhouse farmers, all the different types of farmers. So from an economic pressure and sustainability standpoint, yeah, it does cost more to try to do it sustainably. I mean, cover crops cost more. And, I struggle. I love cover crops, and then I struggle with them on my farm because you got to terminate them one or two ways. You got to either use steel or you got to use chemicals, but you got to get rid of them because we're growing a cash crop, not a cover crop, right? That's not our main thing. And so as a conservationist, I'm thinking, well, I got to do this with steel because I'm trying to reduce chemicals because of the food that I'm growing. And a lot of my leaves go from the farm to somebody's mouth. So we're trying to reduce chemical use, but that is challenging. Mm-hmm. And people don't realize the challenge that comes with that. That means my expenses go up trying to grow without those things, right? Yeah. And so the way we balance it is that we try to tell our story, because the price is the price, and there's a ceiling. Somebody, I think Felicia started out, said, times are tough, and people are not going to always pay what you need to pay the bills, right? So how do we offset that? And a lot of it for us is marketing, right? We've got to be good at building our brand, and we got to be good at marketing, because people in my community is not going to pay that much more just because I say, well, I grew it organically, or I'm regenerative ag, whatever, word you want to use. The ceiling is a ceiling. So that means I got to be better at marketing and trying to bring in more people into my tent in order to survive, because we're in this to make money. Don't think that we're not. People say, well, it's not listen, if you're not trying to make money, you got an expensive hobby. And I can tell you right now, there's a lot of other things I'd rather be doing with my summer than picking green beans. Okay? So that's the thing, we are trying to make money. And I don't apologize for that.
Yep.
But at the same time, I do want to make it affordable so that the people who need it can afford it. So I have to balance that, and the only way I really found to do it is just be good at marketing, be good at telling our story, and try to bring more and more people into our tent.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to again echo the partnership comments. I know we're going off script a little bit here, but when we started this journey, we didn't have a background in controlled environment agriculture. WesleyLife has a focus on serving older adults throughout the state. The number of people who opened their doors to us as we were researching this, recommended different consultants to talk to. We met with Melissa, we met with folks, Mike from Beaver Creek Farms, Kemen, and Bud and Mary's was a huge supporter of ours to help figure out how we would do this indoor ag. Also Corteva. There's just so many resources in this area and people who are willing to open their doors to show you and teach you. And that was just really wonderful for us. We are unique in that we're a nonprofit, so from an economic pressure standpoint, we have maybe a little bit of a different lens, and we are utilizing donor support as well, as Melissa talked about with her services as well. But we're also unique in that we're kind of a built-in customer. So we started this work in this farm missionally. We want to grow all the greens that we need for our Meals on Wheels meals. And so that customer is built in. We're able to design our menus at Meals on Wheels to utilize the greens. As many of you probably know, you've got to have consistent growth patterns, and you don't want to produce too much or too little. So we're able to sync those up, and that's kind of unique for our economic outlook. But we also have those pressures too. I mean, we need to and will be generating retail sales to offset the cost of growing these greens for those in need. So as we've gotten going here, just 6 months in, we're really have been missionally focused, and we're looking forward to advancing that and developing some of those retail sales.
I will add just shortly, just because we're nonprofits does not mean no profit.
Yeah.
So it's actually our greenhouse and our farm that actually funds our emergency shelter. So not only does it put people back to work from the shelter through the farm, but it's our farm and using our indoor ag that actually not only produces our food, which reduces our expenses, but also funds the one thing in our community nobody wants to support. Okay? So just because we're a nonprofit does not mean no profit. And if we stay focused on that mission as a profit center for us, it actually goes back to contributing to our community. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I know we're a little off script, so I'll try and get us back on a little bit here. But this audience is full of representatives from different government entities, the private sector, nonprofit sector, and a myriad of other food security advocates. What advice would you give them to support resilient, sustainable, and nutritious food systems?
Well, first of all of agriculture is diverse, you know. We're all really diverse, and even within our farms, we're really diverse. So one-size-fits-all regulatory approach is really not the right answer for agriculture. We need to encourage that innovation that we talked about, you know. And to me, I also get to be a leader in the Iowa Conservative Energy Forum about renewable energy. And I see lots of opportunities tying renewable energy, you know, with food production, you know, whether it's agrivoltaics that we're starting to learn about, you know, with solar, and some of the panels stand up and down, and you can farm in between them now.
Yep.
But having vegetables in the standard, you know, solar facilities. That's pretty good. And within the new system, one wind tower produces all the energy for 1,500 homes on 1 acre. And so we are about energy. We started out producing energy for our own personal needs. We started expanding that to grow for others. We went into ethanol and biodiesel as liquid fuels, and now it's electric energy. And we need to think about that. It's innovation, it's economic development, it creates opportunities that we didn't have before. And I really think we need to be forward thinking about those things too.
Great. Thank you, Ray.
I think my short answer is this. I think COVID taught us something about our food system, and we need to take a look at it, right? But another good thing that came out of it was in Iowa, there's a partnership between the federal level, state level, and local with this LFPA program, or the Local Food Purchase Assistance Program. Did I get that right? All right. So, a guy from the government ought to be able to get an acronym right, nothing else, right? So we have that program now, and that program is about to expire at the end of that September. That's going to be end of that program. And we need something like that. That gave produce farmers like myself a little bit of a safety net. And our commodity farmers know a little bit about the need for a safety net. And so I've been in that world, and I know that helped us. We need something like that going forward. Now, does it have to look the same? No. I don't think it has to look the same, but I think in the state of Iowa, we need to make sure that we put something in place that's going to help. That opened up so many doors for us. And when those doors open, it don't just impact us, it impact our local economy. It impact the hungry people that was going to the food bank. When Becca was sending me an email, I come in on Wednesday, and then the guys in the back say, hey, we got to get this out front because they've already figured out your schedule. They know when you show up, when you're going to be coming, so they're there for the food. And then I get an email from her saying everything is gone. And that was in one way amazing, but in another way heartbreaking. Because there was that many people hungry and wanted that food that we was bringing in, that it was heartbreaking to me to hear that story, right? And so we need these programs. We need the safety net. So I'll stop there. I'm watching this clock.
I know. Go ahead, Ray.
My wife Elaine is volunteering today. She volunteers 3 days a week at our local food pantry, and they take in appliances and furniture and toys and clothes and resell them, and that's how they raise their money to buy the food for the food pantry. She started about 6 or 7 years ago. There were about 10 people that needed help. There's now 50 people that need help in a small community of 1,500 in Lenox, Iowa. So, there is more need out there because of inflation, because of, everything that's going on today.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Shannon.
I think my advice would be to be bold and to partner. It certainly hasn't been the easy path for us to start a farm. We have had challenging moments through the planning, execution, distribution, all the things that are a part of that. It wasn't an easy path. We could have just ordered hydroponic greens from another farmer. But to really be bold and to think more innovatively, if something seems challenging, maybe just uncover that a little bit. Don't say no right away. So maybe be open to that yes. And partnership is so important. We've each spoken to that already. But we really wouldn't be where we are without partnering with other nonprofits, our key corporate partners that help support our initiative and volunteer regularly to support us. So we need all of those folks to keep this initiative going.
Well, as we close out here, I'd like to turn it back over to you for some closing comments, but challenge each of you just a little bit. What does a food secure state look like? If you couldn't fail and everything you touched turned to gold, what would a food secure state look like for each of you?
First of all, most of the people would have a comfortable living that they could afford to buy the food. Secondly, there would be opportunities like food banking. We need to think in a community, and it shouldn't all be government. We should be able to volunteer to help those kind of things. I have a friend in California that grows produce and supplies 3 million pounds of food to the food bank every year from his business, So we need to think about globally. We think about working together, I think.
And what is, I want to make sure I remember the question. What does a food secure Iowa look like?
Yep.
Yeah, I start with what Ray said and that people could afford it, right? But I also go back to the proverb that the poor shall be with you always. So we're not going to solve it all, right? I believe that based on that, that we're not going to solve it all. But, it also warms my heart when I open up my farm sometime and just say, a family, come, pick what you want. And I don't want anything for it. Just pick what you want, knowing that they're going home and eating. I grew up poor, very poor. And I know what that feels like. I've never been hungry. Okay, I want to make sure that there's a difference. You can grow up poor and not be hungry, because my mom, she gardened and she did what she had to do to make sure I was hungry. But I didn't, and actually didn't know I was poor until I was grown. I thought, man, we were pretty bad. But at the same time, I relate to that, right? And so when people, I think we've got to, as Ray said, make it available, help our neighbors. Farmers come in my office all the time and they say, well, we feed the world. My response is, I just want to feed my community. If everybody took the attitude that we want to just feed our community, we'll get it all done. That's what I want to do. I want to feed my community. And yes, I'm not against international agriculture, okay? I don't want anybody to go, so Shaffer said that we shouldn't be selling to China. That's not what I said, Ray.
No,
Sell all the beans you want to China, okay? What I said was, I think the food that I am growing, I want to take that food and feed my community. And if that means giving some of it away to make sure my neighbors are fed, that's what I would do. What it would look like is food access to everybody.
Cool.
Access to food for everybody.
Yeah, and I would add on to that. I think a food secure Iowa is that people are fed in the right way that works for them, and that we're meeting people where they are. So whether that's culturally appropriate foods or foods you enjoyed in the South that you want to eat here, whether it's a prepared meal through Meals on Wheels because you're not able to prepare your own foods anymore, whether it's going home in backpacks, all these different ways, we're going to have to meet this issue through all of our work together in many different ways. Food security means something different to each person, and people don't all need the same things. We're going to have to develop all these solutions that meet people where they are and bring them the meal that they need.
I
Please,
think
go ahead.
what you said is important too. Available food that people want.
Yeah, they want it.
And the opportunities. I mean, we have so many people in our community. I didn't know. In the Waterloo School District, there is a lot of different languages. I don't forgot how many it is, but it blew my mind when I read that, right? And so a lot of people from a lot of different parts of the world. And they want some of the food that they grew up eating.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm doing now is trying to help some people, especially in the Congolese community, figure out how to grow some of the food that they want to grow. I mean, there's a lot longer seasons, and they got to understand in Iowa, it gets cold here for some reason. So you can't wait till, June to put your crop in the ground. You're going to have to figure out how to get it in a little early because it takes longer for it to mature. Just helping them understand those little simple things, help them grow the food that they grew up with, and then maybe I'll get a chance to try some of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to travel the world, so maybe the world could come to me.
Yeah.
And we could try it through food.
That'd be amazing. Well, I just want to thank all of you for the contributions that you've made here today and to what you do for your own communities. We really are united in that and coming together to solve and to create a food secure state. I can't encourage all of you enough to reach out to your local community members to the point of there are a lot of hidden factors within our communities and a lot of people that are still struggling. Continuing in the summer meal months, especially with our young adults and our kids. We see a lot more of that, and we want to make sure that we're encouraging all of you to reach out to your local communities. All of us can play our part, even if it's planting that tomato plant in the side yard of your house and taking the produce and dropping it off at your local food pantry or food bank. Every little bit helps along the journey, and all of us can plant those seeds. So I just want to thank everybody today and appreciate the opportunity.
Yep.
I like that.